who has a principled, unambiguous record in terms of fighting on disability justice, who has been speaking out on Palestine not just for a few months but for decades against Israeli apartheid, against occupation, who's clearly a defender of neutrality and the triple lock, and who has been crying out about the madness of the neoliberal approach to housing for years and years and years. And I think this is really going to sharpen voters' minds. I think the budget is going to add to that sense. I think this is going to be a very disappointing budget for many people, whereby the government's clearly giving money to McDonald's, giving money to Burger King, giving money to private developers, while turning around and saying to ordinary people, we can't afford energy credits. We're going to hike student fees by €500. They pretend they're reducing them by €500. In reality, they're going up for students. That's what people will experience it as. No cost of living measures for ordinary people, while handing over yet more money to the super rich. So I think, it's the other key dynamic I would say that changes is that now we have one-on-one debates, and I think that is going to work in Catherine's favour and work against Heather, because Heather Humphreys won't be able to escape her role in terms of government. Her fingerprints are all over the disastrous government policies that have got us to where we currently are. And then the other element is the grassroots campaign. I mean, we had Catherine in Dublin South West yesterday. Every venue we went to, every meeting that was organised was absolutely packed out, and that reflects the growing enthusiasm, the growth of the movement. And Catherine, every time she speaks, she makes this point: it's not about me, this is about a movement. I'm simply a symbol of that movement. I think that's true. 5,000 people have signed up to volunteer for Catherine's campaign in the last 7 days alone. So when you look at the stats, the numbers of people who are joining are increasing day by day. So momentum is really developing behind Catherine, and that's reflected on the ground. The other point to make quickly is in relation to the flotilla in Palestine and the response of the state here. I heard Sarah Clancy, who I was with in Tunis for a while, on RT Radio this morning, describing pretty horrific conditions in Israeli prison, being denied mattresses, being denied food and water for a long period of time, being abused, threatened with guns in prison even. I mean, really, really horrendous stuff. So there's pressure on the Irish government now to say what they're going to do about that, but also, above all, what the flotilla activists want. And the flotilla activists, there's another group who are now including more Irish citizens who are a couple of days away from likely kidnapping, another act of international piracy by Israel. The main thing people want is the government to do everything it can, stop watering down the Occupied Territories Bill, stop the overflights and so on. But the other point to just make briefly is I think it's really gone under the radar so far. On Saturday, so there was a protest here, a massive protest, tens and tens of thousands of people on a solidarity protest with Palestine organised by the IPSC. Maybe 100 people or 200 people went down towards the docks and were subject to gross Garda brutality. The videos are horrific. I can't think of the last time you had such Garda viciousness and violence against protesters since maybe the Rossport protests, which are now 20 years ago. I mean, they were breaking their own guidelines in terms of the use of pepper spray in an indiscriminate manner, using batons above waist level, again in an indiscriminate way against their own guidelines, resulting in multiple people having head injuries, one person having a wrist broken. And what it looks like, I mean, people have seen the horrific footage of Kitty O'Brien, an Irish activist in Germany, being attacked by the German police. Well, it happened here on Saturday in our capital city, and I've written to the Ceann Comhairle. I've sought a debate this week on the matter, and we haven't had a substantial response to that. There's been no statement from the Minister for Justice as to whether he stands over this sort of policing. Is this the road we're going down now, to go lockstep with many other European countries in terms of brutalised repression against protesters? I think it's extremely concerning.
Just to follow up on that, I went down to the port because I was contacted on Saturday by people in my party, young people, and actually somebody who works with me, that they'd been pepper sprayed by Gardaí for totally peaceful protest. And another young member of my party, a young woman, was battened on the knees. She's using crutches. She's bruised and swollen. The pepper spray, by the way, was still affecting people the next day. I read an article that it's double strength pepper spray that the Gardaí are now using. And I just want to say, pepper spray is illegal for example, a woman to walk on the street at night and have pepper spray. You know, in other countries that happens. You're not allowed to do that. But yet we see the Gardaí clearly using this without any real regard and any need. It was a very peaceful protest at the port, done in conjunction with a 2-year anniversary of a genocide that's taken place. So I will be looking to raise that. I've put it in as a topical issue. It's unfortunate that this week the budget is dominating the whole agenda, because it is the 2nd anniversary of the beginning of the genocidal attacks in Palestine. I just want to mention as well the issue of the drones. People may have seen in my own area last night. It's not often you attend a meeting of 250 people in a local community, and I can tell you that because it's very difficult to get people to meetings. But it is a sign of the strength of feeling. These are fast food drone deliveries, dropping ice cream, dropping coffee and fast food. They're not essential, and they're causing so much noise and disruption, which is bad for people's health, for their mental health, for people working from home, autistic people, elderly people, children going to sleep. And it has to stop. We can regulate till the cows come home, but it's not acceptable to people for this to continue. And I just want also to mention on the presidency, it's very clear that, you know, Fianna Fáil have questions to answer about why they chose a celebrity GAA candidate without due process, and as regards his record, they haven't answered. They knew he was a landlord. They didn't ask him had he registered with the RTB, which would seem to me to be a very basic thing to ask a landlord, and I haven't heard that asked anywhere. They asked him if he'd any issues with tenants, but they didn't say, are you actually registered? And I'd say that that's because it's not a big issue in Fianna Fáil. You know, not registering your tenancy is par for the course. I'm assuming that they thought that this wouldn't be an issue. £3,000, what's that to a landlord? Well, it's a hell of a lot to a tenant, you know, particularly a tenant expecting their first baby. So I think that it does open up now a huge space for Catherine Connolly to win this election. And I think I would like to also mention one thing I heard last night about Heather Humphreys seems to be leaning into attacking a very vulnerable minority in our society, which is transgender people who are getting attacked, you know, by the far right, by this so-called culture war. And it seems like that the former Minister in Social Protection that actually introduced the Gender Recognition Act doesn't support the Gender Recognition Act. That's actually bizarre, and a few journalists should ask her questions about that. Clearly leaning into the Maria Steen vote and the far right vote, and that seems to be the way it's going to go. So I think that was an interesting one. And obviously on the budget, we'll all be commenting on that, but this is a giveaway budget for the fast food chains and not a giveaway budget for working people or ordinary people. Electricity 69%, gas going up 100%, but people's incomes are going to be completely eroded after this budget with the reduction, with the taking away of the one-off payments. And just McDonald's 41 million profits in Ireland, but they're getting a huge handout today. Supermax made, 46 million, I think, in Ireland. There's a lot of late night drinking and then Supermac consumption, but here they are, they're going to get a great handout from the Irish taxpayer today when they actually don't need it. Meanwhile, we don't have scoliosis operations and all of the other things that it could be used for. So
I think it doesn't really matter now, I guess. But I think Fianna Fáil would have tried to plough on if they did come out and poll at 15% on Sunday morning.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, what Fianna Fáil are saying
ties into their timeline.
Well, what Fianna Fáil are saying. Well, this is the problem with their timeline. Their timeline says, for them, if you listen to Jack Chambers, for example, the essential issue for them, and effectively what they're saying the reason he had to go as a candidate was because he didn't tell the truth to them. That they got the query on the Friday, they go to him, he says, no, definitely nothing to see here, and then that's for them. That's what Jack Chambers was quite clearly saying yesterday morning. The problem is, I have heard that contact was made early in September, around 4th or 5th of September, to Fianna Fáil, asking about this. The Irish Independent today says they're aware of contact on the 8th of September. That could be the same event that actually is slightly misremembered on one side or the other. But either way, Fianna Fáil knew about it. I think this is a Fianna Fáil matter, but that is a huge deal for Micheál Martin, because if they knew about it and then we're just ploughing on, and then in reality it's about the opinion polls and this thing is going down like a lead balloon, which the candidacy was in reality even before this, then Micheál Martin was misleading people and Jack Chambers was misleading people just the other day. So I suspect there'll be more questions asked. That they're kind of presumably they're happy that the budget's on now and that the focus will be on the budget, but I presume attention will return to this.
What do you think the Fine Gael representatives in here need to do about those comments from Heather Humphreys on the trans issue?
Yeah, well, I'm very interested. The Gender Recognition Act is 10 years old. Now, I think it's news to anybody that there's a former senior minister in that very department who now thinks it wasn't a good idea. So I think questions need to be asked of Fine Gael. Do they stand over the right of people to be transgender, in this society? Because, we all know that trans non-binary people are being attacked all over the world and in this country, and there's enough fear out there, and this has really added to it. And she's obviously decided she'll bring this in to the presidential election, answering a question from her old friends from Gript, in such a way I think that people will have noted it last night, and certainly we'll be highlighting it and raising